Hey guys, welcome to the show today. I've got my good friend Arjun Dhingra here. Arjun, welcome.
Thanks, brother, for having me, man.
Yeah.
I get down to Vegas once a month, but we never get to do this, so this is awesome.
I know, this is awesome today, man. So
Yeah.
we got a little coffee talk going. We're cranked up on caffeine. Arjun's had like 2 hours sleep in the last week. And so we're like, you know what?
Par for the course.
Yeah, we need to get cranked up on caffeine. I've got my 600 milligrams in this morning.
Love it.
But anyway, so let's just jump to it, man.
Yeah.
I want to start off, Arjun. First of all, I want to thank you guys. We had a great event here today. Arjun came in and talked about video branding and how important that is. And I think we've all realized more and more as we're seeing the market change that, branding yourself, getting your name out there more than ever is really important. So let's start off, man. Give me a little background on yourself. Tell me about, where you came from, how you got into mortgage. Give us some background, man.
So I grew up in Reno,
Yep.
right? And that's the connection you and I have as we're Nevada guys.
Yeah.
And then, love the Running Rebels basketball team growing up because all kids of the 90s.
Absolutely,
Still
man.
the biggest thing to happen to this state, in
Yeah.
my opinion. The
No
greatest
doubt.
thing.
No doubt, man.
A tiny school from nowhere,
Yeah.
out of a non-major conference to win the national title. And not just win it, like blow everyone out of the water.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Still,
Go
I
UNLV.
actually literally just got hanging in my office. I got it last week off eBay. The Review Journal cover, the Larry Johnson
Oh,
pass
really?
behind the back, like when they won it.
Yeah,
the cover,
yeah.
The sports cover from that day.
Oh,
Now
that's
it's hanging in my
awesome, dude.
office. Most of the people have no idea what it is, but I know. So I grew up in Nevada, or Running Rebels fan, but grew up in Reno. Went to school there. And while in school, in college, my senior year, I got into the mortgage industry by accident. Because everyone gets into mortgage by accident.
Yep.
Nobody intentionally looks for it. Some could say that a little bit about real estate. Maybe
Well,
not
real
as
estate
much.
people get into it when they don't know what else they're going to do anymore.
Yeah, it's
So
a good fallback, right? Like going to law school. I guess
Yeah.
I'll go to law school. Nothing else to do. So I started in mortgage. This was 2001.
Okay.
So this was right around the time that it was about to become the Wild West all over again.
Okay.
And that big run up before the crash.
Yeah.
I was living in a fraternity house, going door to door, collecting paperwork because nothing was digital.
Yeah.
And I got paid by the household.
Yeah.
For the company that I worked for. And then, I started seeing the money that other guys were making and I wanted to do something bigger. So my brother and another partner and I signed a lease for a place, opened a call center. I was the president of my fraternity, so all the pledges were brought in at night to work the phones from 5 to 8 p.m. I bought them pizza and they worked the phones with a script. It was kind of like the boiler room,
Prospecting?
but legit.
Okay.
And they were calling veterans, because we had call sheets around the country, because back then the licensing was so loose.
Yeah.
You could market to any state you wanted to.
Yeah.
As long as you had the farms and whatever. And they were cranking, starting on the East Coast and then working their way west with the time zone, and they'd call all night. And then if they got a veteran on the phone to do a rate reduction, that VA Streamline program is the best refinance program in the world. It's so easy for them.
Yeah.
Very little as deservedly so.
Absolutely,
Veterans should
man.
get everything. They deserve
Absolutely.
everything. So, yeah, that's how we got started in the business, and then rode through the crash. Shortly into that time, though, before the crash, I opened an office for us in San Francisco.
Okay.
Because I was going to the city at that time a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I had a cousin that lived there, and I liked it. I felt like personal growth for me was a little bit, had more upside there, and I was just kind of expanding my horizons and stuff, and my network, and the people I was able to meet. So I eventually opened an office for us, and I would go back and forth. Still kept my tax residence in Nevada.
Yeah, of course.
But that's how I got in the mortgage industry. And, I've ridden through various market cycles just like you have. The 08 crash.
I was going to say, so before we dive into that, because
Yeah.
obviously it takes to be able to go through a time like that, it takes a certain mindset.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to power through those times. What a lot of people may not know about you is your martial arts background. So share a little bit of that, because I think it's key. I think it's key for people to understand that,
Yeah.
to understand why the level of discipline and mindset really makes a difference when you're looking to achieve high success.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit of your background regarding martial arts?
I appreciate you bringing it up because I have that mutual respect for you and your fitness background. I think that's why we connected.
Yeah, absolutely,
as
man.
friends, because of structure, discipline, relentless work ethic, like a refusal to give in.
Yep.
And that's a certain mindset. And it can be taught. Some people are born with it. Others can develop it. And I think it's what separates people in business from those that don't have it.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely helped me out. I know it's helped you out and gotten you to the level that you're at. So I got started in Taekwondo when I was 8 because I got bullied as a kid. So a lot of kids get into martial arts for those reasons. And I was a byproduct of the original Karate Kid.
Okay.
Right? The
Yep.
original one. I know there's been a few iterations. The crane
Yeah.
kick, yeah. So it inspired me. I saw it and I got picked on by one particular guy all the time through kindergarten and first grade. And then by second grade, I was like crying to my mom, like, I want to learn karate or something, because I'd saw the movie and how he got bullied. And I said, I want that to be me. So she just flipped through the yellow pages. Remember those?
Yeah, yeah.
Yellow pages. People are like, what is this podcast?
For people that don't know what that was a huge book that they would drop on your doorstep.
Before Google.
Before Google. It was like a manual Google.
That's pretty much. And you had to thumb, and the yellow pages where you found the businesses.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the service providers. If you needed a plumber, you looked in the yellow pages.
Yep. And I remember back then a tip from a friend was always start the name of your company with an A
100%.
so that you're the first in the yellow pages.
That was marketing 101 back then. Marketing has changed, but
a little bit, yeah.
She flipped through and found a class at the YMCA and she put me in. I got started in that, and the rest was history. I stayed with it, so I've been doing it now 38 years, and way deep into doing it after getting a black belt and then sticking with it for fitness and also for cross coordination for other sports, because I played football and ran track in high school. But I always stuck with the martial arts, and it opened up a lot of doors for me, and it was a great way to travel and see the world. They opened up at that time, back in 2007, the international competition process for people of my rank, 5th degrees.
Okay.
Because normally at that time, up to that point, by the time you made it to 5th degree, you were older.
Okay.
So they didn't think of people competing, but around the world, so many younger people had attained the rank, and they were still in their physical prime, and they're like, let's let them compete. So they opened it up, expanded it. And so I was like, you know what? This will be cool. How often you get the chance to, potentially realize a dream of being on a podium and hearing your national anthem.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also being on Team USA for something, It's
Yeah.
like what you dream of, and like bowing your head and getting a medal put on you. I was like, I want to do this. So I went out for it in 2007. I made the team. It was a qualifying process. I got to compete in that cycle, and I put together a really good team of people around me. Because, as you know, with your background and in fitness and in business, it's about the team and the collaboration of the people you have around
Absolutely.
you. The right nutritionist, the right trainer, the right mindset guy, the right physical guy, the right chiropractor. Like, I locked it all in.
Yeah.
Which was like lightning in a bottle, because I'd never done this before.
Yeah.
But I just known that successful people always have that structure.
Yeah.
They don't do it alone. You don't wing it.
Nope.
This is an opportunity that I may only get once, so I'm going to pull out all the stops. So I did. I found the right people. Felt like the stars aligned, and I ended up winning the World Championship that year.
Wow, that's awesome,
And then
man.
I did it again in 2012, but I fell short. And then I said, well, we're only going to find out one way or another here, if I had sticking power or if I got lucky.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to pull out all the stops again. I kept the team the same. I enhanced it with one additional person and did it again in 2014 in Rome, Italy. Was fortunate to win, ended on a really good note, and I called my own shot, which is every athlete's dream, to be able to retire on your own terms, not because your body failed you or you were humiliated so bad that they're like, you need to stop.
Yeah.
Which happens, sadly, to some athletes. They don't know when to quit.
Yep.
And then they eventually go out on a really bad note.
Yeah.
Optically. But I was just fortunate. So it was a dream ending, stopped, and then I coached Team USA for another 10 years and just stepped down last year, because we had our second daughter, and my wife was like, you are done coaching. Like, there's no more
You're traveling enough as it is.
I travel enough as it is, and it's a big commitment, but it was the most rewarding experience ever. But, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but the martial arts background, because of structure, discipline, collaboration, improvement, constant improvement, recognizing that you are a work in progress and you're never done.
Well, and I think the biggest thing, and this is where, to me, it relates to sales, is that there's a lot of accountability in that, right?
Yeah.
You can't point the fingers to anybody outside of you when it's only about you, right? And it's the same with selling. Like, it's easy to sit around and point to the fingers of like, well, this person didn't do that,
market,
or this failed.
blame the market.
Blame the market, all these other outside conditions. But the reality is, at the end of the day, it's all on you. Like, you have to take the responsibility. You have to be the one.
Everything is
and I'm
your
sure
fault.
that reflects the same in martial arts. Like, you can't blame everybody else. At the end of the day, man, you've got to be the one who's disciplined to take the responsibility and do those
Everything
things.
is on us.
Yeah.
It's always our fault. And as the CEO of your company, everything is your fault.
Absolutely, man.
It always falls on your shoulders,
Yep.
man.
And there's definitely those days you wake up, you want to blame everyone.
Totally. No, you go through
And
it.
then you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, well, you know what, man? It's really, it's me.
You're human, so you're going to do that.
Yeah.
I do it too with the entities I run, and you blame everyone for a second. Do that for 5 minutes in private, never publicly.
Yeah.
And then you get back to, okay, what do I got to do? We got to keep going.
So let's jump back to 2007, the year that you competed, but also we know 2007 was definitely the beginning of the
crazy.
downfall of the real estate market. And I think I always I like to look back sometimes because I think so many people forget about history,
Big time.
right? And they only look at where we're at today. I was just sharing with someone the other day that I loved last year when the interest rates went up and the market slowed and everybody was panicking. I loved hearing these agents who said that were new to the business, oh man, this is just like 2008. And I'm like, dude, this is nothing like 2008. It's completely different, but I think it's really important to look back at the history, look at where we're at today.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to, if you want to be successful in any business, regardless if it's real estate or anything else, I think it's good to understand that everything has its cycles, right?
Totally.
And every business evolves and has, I mean, look at brick and mortar right now, right? Brick and mortar is being destroyed
Decimated.
by online. And so the companies that are going to survive in brick and mortar, they have to reinvent themselves and think differently and maybe do a little bit of both. They're online and they're brick and mortar. And so, I think we've begun to see that now in the real estate industry as well. You guys experienced that already. What was that, back in 2011 when they made the changes to the mortgage industry?
Yeah.
And capped you guys on what you could make per transaction?
TRID laws, non-QM rules.
Yeah.
Or QM rules, sorry. Non-QM is a space in lending, but QM rules, qualified mortgage rules, and the TRID laws, the rise of e-lenders, internet banks. Like, there's been constant disruption.
So walk us a little bit through 2007 to 2010, because for the ones that are sitting out there right now watching, thinking, man, now with the new BBA rules in place and the market hasn't quite picked up, and we were talking about it today, even with the interest rates dropping this time, the one thing that's been surprising is we haven't seen a huge uptick in activity again. And so I think people are starting to panic a little bit. What were some of the things that got you through, I feel like it was 2007 to 2010, which before the market really started to recover.
Right.
What was it that, for you, one, were there points in between that time that you wanted to quit and give up? And two, what were the things that kept you going during that time?
Well, that time was dark, too. Right?
Yeah.
You couldn't even tell people what you did for a living because everybody, it was a global depression, financial depression. And the U.S. was hit extremely hard. And the financial industry, specifically the mortgage banking industry, was to blame for it. They took the brunt. That's why all the reforms happened on that side. And so you couldn't tell people because everybody was very, very upset, rightfully so, with the industry, that not enough was done, there weren't enough safeguards, it was running too much of a muck of everything. And that can all be argued or deliberated later or retried. But I couldn't tell people what I did. I didn't have anywhere to go because, let's be honest, at that time, for those that are listening to this, no sector in the economy was doing well, really. Everything was affected. Since that time,
I think bars were doing decent.
Bars were doing decent. Booze, sex, and gambling took off. Which are the
Vegas
sin industries.
I was bartending during that year, so I know. That was a 1 year I bartended, or 2 years.
This place is packed. What recession? This place is packed because people escape,
Yeah.
And that's kind of it was a sad reality of things.
Absolutely.
And I think for everyone listening, what I'm talking about here with Darin, what he's bringing up, because some people are like, I don't want to hear the back in my day thing. Like, I'm in this market now, and this market is hard. And my answer to you for that, or my comment on that is, it's all relative. Your 2024 could be as significant to you as my 2007.
Absolutely.
It's relative. Whatever you're going through, it's tough. No two cycles are the same. And the other news flash for you, it's not a matter of if these things happen, guys, it's a matter of when.
Absolutely.
They will continue to happen. This disruption with the lawsuit, right? The black swan event of COVID, which ultimately led to a bull market, but now that bull market, we're experiencing the downsides of it because, interest rates being kept so artificially low has gridlocked this market. It's run prices up, and now we're on the other side of it.
People got really excited about spending, and they're now running out of money.
Big time, man. There's always consequences and actions that come with it, and then you're going to have to live with them. But in 2007 and 2010, it was dark. There was no place to go. So we had to stick it out. So my brother and I, who were pretty much together at that point, our other partner had backed out of the industry and taken some time away. Neil and I stuck with it because we had nowhere else to really turn. And we wanted to wait and see. So we kind of lived off savings. There was no income. But what we did do was start to help people as best as we could. So what we started doing were mortgage modifications. We were in service, I said this today, like, if you are not in service to others, you'll have a short-lived career. When the market crashed, there was no money to be made. We had a lot of clients that were losing their homes. We had a lot of clients that were going through really hard times, like difficult times, like stuff like it almost made you emotional listening to the phone calls.
Oh,
or
absolutely,
when people
man.
would reach out to you, what was happening to them, to their family, to their parents.
Yeah.
You know, it was tough. And we said, okay, well, let's try and help. We understand how to talk to banks. Let's just help people out and try and get these modifications done.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a new Wild West was emerging. Most of the clients we didn't even charge because they had no money to pay us.
Wow.
Some paid us a couple $100, you know, just to, like, as a consulting fee. So we were doing this for pennies. It was basically food money.
Yeah.
But there were several hundred people that, on their behalf, we were able to help keep them in their homes and restructure their mortgages. Who do you think, when the market turned around, those people came back to?
Absolutely, man.
They
Went
came
back to you guys.
They came
Yeah.
back to us. They're still clients of ours. I still, to this day, in 2024, have clients that I helped in 2007. I got them into a home in 2005
Yeah.
or 2004. They nearly lost it in the market crash of 07, 08. I helped them stay in that home, and they're still clients of mine because of what I did for them. So I wasn't doing something for my own profit or my own well-being. I was trying to help people out. We also felt a heightened sense of responsibility to do something.
Yeah.
Because our industry was at the epicenter of this crash. So we did that a lot, and that planted seeds, not of profitability. There were still very hard financial times, and we had to undergo all the commission changes and structure and the caps. Everything was, we did loans for free at one point because there was just no way to make money. And then while they figured out what was going on. But eventually, there was money to be made. There were margins that were coming back into the industry, because the good thing for you and I, and for everyone listening to this that's passionate about real estate, either as a career or as an investment vehicle, it never goes out of style.
No.
People need shelter. They always need a roof over their head, whether it's to rent or to own.
It's the American dream, right?
It's
It's
the
the one thing
American
that
dream.
people look for, they want to have. They want a home ownership.
That's
So,
it.
yeah.
They want home ownership, and to take your point even further, it's the greatest source of creating wealth for the everyday American that has ever existed. It's the strongest, most outperforming asset class there is. Nothing rivals it.
Yeah.
Sure, there are other ways to get rich or do well, but they also come with incredible risk. Long-term real estate, owning real estate, the net worth of an owner is 40x that of a renter.
And
That's
even if you look
indisputable.
at most successful entrepreneurs, even if they're successful in other areas,
They own real
whether
estate.
they own car dealerships
Yeah.
or whatever, they're all involved in real estate.
They all are.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
presidents are.
Yeah.
The billionaires you hate,
Yep.
or that you've been told to hate, that these guys
They
are
all own real estate.
They own all real estate.
Yeah.
Because of its tax advantages, of its long-term wealth creation, of its capital sourcing, you know, because it helps you leverage other things.
It doesn't go out of style.
Never goes out of style.
Yeah.
You always need it.
Yeah.
During good markets, because life happens. And this is another thing for listeners, right? Like, it never goes out of style because life events don't stop. People
Yeah.
continue to get married, even through downturns in the economy. They still get divorced. In fact, divorces tick up during harder times
Absolutely.
because you and I talked about it this morning. Money issues lead to divorce. When there's a divorce, there's a home that needs to be sold, there's equity that needs to be split, and those people need another roof over their head.
Yeah.
So it just cycles through, right? People
Yeah.
have kids, they need to get into school zones. There's job layoffs, there's job advancement, we need to move here. So it never stops. So if you're always in service to others, you'll always have a place in a housing economy.
Yeah.
And that was what we learned during 07. That has always served us well through other iterations, because again, no two cycles have been the same. This current one that we're in is a real head scratcher, to your
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
right? We've got lower rates, but it hasn't resulted in an uptick. And prices have stayed high, and we're going through, and we've got a real inventory shortage, right? Huge imbalance that's not suddenly going to turn
Yeah.
unless something crazy happens to the overall economy. This is just a head scratcher of a market right now.
Yeah.
So we're all working through it.
But you know, I think back into all the years, you know, even before real estate sales, and I was in other markets.
Yeah.
Every industry goes through this,
Totally.
right? Every industry has its evolutions, it changes, and I think that, you know, the ones that fell are the ones who, you know, you shared it this morning. In a bull market, it can make anybody look really good, right?
Everyone's an expert.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's an expert in a bull market until it changes, and then all of a sudden, now what do I do? Or the markets, you know, they're disadvantaged at that point, and you know, I'm gonna give up because, you know, nobody's working with me anymore, and people are going to this person. But I think the one thing that you brought up, and I want to point out, and I always share this with my team, is that in any down market, right, in any terrible market, that's where the opportunity is. The opportunity is not in the good market,
Never.
right? Because everybody's diving into that. It's like when the stock market's going up, and people start diving in. That's not the right time to buy. I mean,
It's a wave.
I'm no stock expert.
It's a
but
wave.
Typically, you understand you buy at the low point and you ride it up, and when you get to the top, and I always share this story because I'll never forget in Think and Grow Rich, you talked about this, that, you know, the rich during good times, they buy opportunities and they sell, or I'm sorry, during good times, they sell those opportunities, and during bad times, they buy those opportunities. Because that's when you make the money. You make the money on the buy.
Wealth is created, yeah.
Exactly.
Look at all the companies that are born out of recessions as of late. Airbnb, Uber, Groupon, WhatsApp, the application, right? And there's so many more.
Yeah.
All these companies started in recessions.
Absolutely.
During tough times.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's when the ingenuity or the risk-taking happens, and, to the risk-taker comes the reward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to your point, you're spot on.
So I think that's a big thing now is looking for what that opportunity is in today's market.
Yeah.
Obviously with the BBA change and now agents having to get buyer broker agreement changed, a lot of them are still feeling very confident at this point. And I tell them to be cautious of that because sellers have still been expected to pay that 3% on the other side. They were already kind of conditioned to that because most of them signed listing agreements months ago. Yeah. Now we're really starting to see the effects of that where people are pushing back a little bit. I don't think it's an issue for any agent who's confident and experienced and understands their value. But I definitely think it's a challenge for new agents of trying to figure out, okay, now what do I do?
Right.
Where do I shift to?
Yeah.
But again, this is the greatest time in the market because this is the time where, like you shared this morning, is if you ride the wave when it's high, and that's when you build your business. But also when the market's slow, that's when you got to ramp up things. And you think it gives you opportunity and time to think differently and recreate so that when that market comes back, you're riding on the top of it.
Totally.
It's very much, I think I shared with you, when I got into real estate in 2008, I got my license and everybody's like, dude, do you realize what's going on? Like, are you nuts? And I just saw it at the time as like, wow, dude, like now is a good time to start.
Yeah, everyone's leaving.
Everyone's leaving. And if I can start at the bottom of the market and I can learn in the toughest time, right? Then in the future, as market gets easier, I'm going to ride the market up. And then when looking back, it's like you and I, we always use working out and relating things to working out. Totally. I always tell everyone, I'm like, dude, your best workouts are on the days that where you're toughest, that you grinded the hardest, man. Right? And that's where you make your biggest gains. Yeah. It's not on the days when you go in and it's super easy. You're not making great gains on those days. It's the days on when it's super hard and you work a little bit harder and you stay a little bit extra. Those are the days, and that's something I always try to convey to the agents is like, dude, make yourself, Ed Milet talked about this as being a business athlete, right?
Yes.
View yourself as a business athlete and train like you're training for something, a competition or whatever. I mean, that's what we're doing on a daily basis. So as we came out of, so when did you guys start to see things recover for yourself? Was it 2010, 2011?
Yeah, I think around that time because, there was all the tax credits that were coming into effect.
Yeah.
The Obama administration, rightfully so, needed to incentivize the demand side of the equation. Mm-hmm. So they gave those big tax credits, a $10,000 or $12,000 tax credit if you bought a home.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of sense.
Yep.
That was effectively money that was going to come off your potential bottom line if you owed money on taxes every year, or it helped increase your refund that you were getting. So this was really big, and it spurred a lot of demand. And by that time, the compensation reforms had already taken hold. So we knew what the comp plans were. Mm-hmm. So, but you were able to do a lot more volume.
Yeah.
So you may not have made as much per transaction as a service provider, but you could do a lot more transactions.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to get all this inventory off the market. There was a huge imbalance. So homes were a steal. Those who bought homes, as you know, during that time and wrote it up for the next 8 to 10 years.
They look brilliant now.
They look great, right? Those homes like 5X, 8X, 10X in some cases, right? Yeah. People made a lot of money. And I think it's important too for people who listen to this to understand the experience or the trauma that goes with these things in terms of what people are exposed to. Oftentimes as real estate professionals, when we market, and we talked about this a lot this morning, you gotta know your audience and like have some intentionality. Marketing is not just throwing stuff and expecting it to always stick. Sometimes you gotta know exactly what to throw in at what part of the wall you wanna throw it to, like be really honed in, understand the data. People that market to today's buyers, millennials, Gen Zers, sometimes I think miss this. A millennial grew up watching their parents go through that housing crash. Their experience around real estate tends to be a little bit more negative or gun shy.
Absolutely.
They watched their family get decimated. They watched their parents crying. That was scary for them as kids or teenagers. Like, that was horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't blame them when you reach out to them like, hey, dude, let's go out and look at a house. They're like, no. Like, I would rather travel. Like, that wrecked my parents' life, and that's trauma I still haven't unpacked.
I share that with the agents all the time because they talk about this new generation of buyers coming up. But I think what we're not expecting is I think that they have a different perception of
Totally.
real estate agents and mortgage officers, that their view is not a positive view of us, right? They have a view of real estate agents and loan officers as, man, you guys are the ones that made my parents lose their home, and we had to move, and we lost our 3 cars.
I don't trust you.
They don't trust us.
They don't
and
trust.
so I think that, that's where it's given opportunities to companies like Zillow and Redfin and all of those, because even though they're not dealing directly with anybody face to face, they trust those big brands now, right? Yeah. That's how they've been conditioned, is everything is done on the phone. They trust the companies that they work with on the phone. Yeah. And so for the younger generation coming up, and that's why I share with the agents all the time, I'm like, man, you guys better start rethinking what your business is going to look like 5 years from now. I always try to, I don't worry so much about today. Obviously, I deal with the day-to-day, but I try to think about what's business going to look like for us 5 years from now, right? How are people, what are consumer habits? Agents can tout all the time that, oh man, Zillow's not going to impact my business because you can't replace the level of service and blah, blah, blah. And I always caution them, because I think I've shared this with you. I owned a health food store in 2011. And I realized really quickly, because I had the same belief. I worked in that industry for a long time, and it was always about helping people, right? And people would come to us and say, what is creatine? What is this product? Or how do I lose weight? And we would walk them through it. And that was before the internet. Then all of a sudden I opened the store in 2011, and people would come in, they'd still ask me questions. And then they'd turn around, they'd walk out the door. And then they'd come back a week later and be like, oh man, I tried that product, I loved it. I'm like, well, where'd you get it from?
Where'd you buy it here? Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I got it on Amazon. And I'm like, oh shit, man, we're in trouble. Yeah. Like I saw the brick and mortar industry changing, and I'm like, I called my partner at that time. I said, we need to sell the store. And she was like, why? And I said, because buyers are not buying the same way they used to, and the business model that we walked into, quite honestly, that was my own mistake, was that I didn't look at where the market was today and where I was at. I thought about where the market was 10 years prior when I worked in a retail store and how things operated.
Sure.
And I think that's where a lot of agents are today. I think they look at today and what we've done for the last 10 years and why that's worked for us. And they're not looking at what are my challenges coming at me in the next 5 years, right? Yeah. Like we know that the BBA thing, my opinion, I think the whole buyer broker agreement is the least of our worries, in my opinion. I think we've got so many more challenges coming at us from a technology standpoint. And I think that if we don't compete or keep up with that in some way, that we're going to be forgot about, right? I mean, I think there was just an announcement a few weeks ago, Zillow is launching the super app. Yeah. And I've talked about this for the longest time. I'm like, there'll come a point, I'm like, and everybody downs Zillow, and they're happy when Zillow's stock drops, or they're happy when they see that Zillow's title company went out of business.
Sure. And there's layoffs.
Yeah, and all the agents rally, see how great we are, Zillow's not going to be able to beat us. And I'm like, dude, the one thing you're forgetting, there's some really smart people that run that company.
Oh, yeah.
And just like any business, every business goes through its challenges, every business has its losses. Theirs is at a much greater scale, right? So comparatively, their $60 million loss may be a $6,000 loss for me.
Right.
But they'll figure it out. They've got smart people, and they're figuring it out. I mean, we already know this. I ask agents all the time when we talk about this. I'm like, dude, when's the last time a client sent you a property from the MLS? I'm like, what do they usually do? They usually screenshot it on Zillow. Mm-hmm. And almost every one of your clients you talk to in the morning, or when you talk to them, oh yeah, I was looking at this property on Zillow. They all love surfing Zillow.
Yeah.
Now I know you guys went through something similar because you've got the Rocket Mortgages, you've got these big online companies. How has that impacted your business? I mean, we know those are some of the biggest mortgage companies out there now, right?
They are, and they still are, and they will be.
Yeah.
Right? And they have a certain client that they appeal to.
Yeah.
You got to recognize that when disruption comes about, and it's going to keep happening, recognize why it happened, who it's there to serve, and what's your role going to be moving forward. How are you going to get better to either compete with this or maybe pivot a little bit if you don't want to leave the industry altogether. The homeowner, or the home buyer, that is getting into this process and needs a lot of guidance and a lot of hand-holding, and they don't have a lot of financial literacy. They're not good with their money, which the average consumer in the United States is not. Mm-hmm. This is a society that's built on debt and consumption. Yep. That's how our economy works. Yeah. Right? That's why we have record numbers in credit card debt, auto loan debt, consumer debt, student loan debt, whatever it is. People want to take out stuff, spend it, I'll figure it out later. Yeah. So our role as advisors, as mortgage advisors, is to educate that particular consumer. You got to recognize that you're not going to be for everyone. The savvy person that has done a mortgage transaction or two, like you, you wouldn't necessarily need me. You might use me, Darin, because we're buddies and we support each other's businesses, but at the end of the day, you could do your own mortgage.
Yeah.
You could go to Rocket, negotiate your terms, figure out where you fall, and you've done enough of these.
Yeah.
You don't need the hand-holding.
Yeah.
But someone listening to this who's never bought real estate, or one of those millennial buyers whose parents got wiped out and they're trying to get over this fear, they're not going to go want to do it alone. They're going to want to do it with an advisor, someone that's actually been there and done it. So that was how we have continued to ride out all disruption that comes in the lending space. And it'll keep happening.
Yeah.
Discount lenders, Zillow's has got their own mortgage entity as well. Amazon either has or is about to come up with a mortgage product, which I'm sure will be an amazing product, right?
Yeah,
We're going to
absolutely.
keep dealing with it.
Yeah.
We're not for everybody,
Yep.
as mortgage advisors. So recognize that whenever you're dealing with disruption in your own way, as you listen here. Figure out your role going forward and then zero in on it. Don't try and be everything to everyone. Figure out who you're meant to be in your industry or within your profession, what you're really good at, why do people call you, and double down on that. Squeeze that.
Well, and I think that, what we discussed this morning, I mean, this is where it comes down to branding, right?
Yes.
And getting people to know who you are. And the agents who have always been kind of behind the scenes, they didn't want to be out in front of the camera. They didn't want, I don't like to do that stuff. I think now, and you, there was a great, what was the quote you said this morning about if you're not doing it, someone else will?
If I don't, someone else will.
Yeah.
That's everyone's personal mantra. It needs to be.
Yeah.
If I don't do this thing, somebody else will. Someone is going to eat my lunch.
Absolutely.
If I don't.
Yep. And I think that's the thing that agents have to realize is that, and any business, right? Like as things evolve and things change, if you're a brick and mortar store owner, right, you got to start looking at, what are the things that I don't want to do? They might be uncomfortable, right? But what are those things that I'm going to need to do to shift my business and to be able to keep in front of everyone else and to grow my business, right? Because we don't all just open a business just to be, satisfied, right? I don't think any entrepreneur has that mindset of just, well, I want to open an office and, make $100,000 a year and I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
That's more like self-employment and creating a job for yourself. Most entrepreneurs have a much bigger picture than that. So what is it going to take to get to that next level? So, when it comes to branding, what are some of the opportunities? What would be some of the suggestions? Whether it's a new agent who's breaking into the, they got their license this past year and then they found out about the NAR ruling and they're like, oh, wow, this is going to change my business. And now what do I do? Or for the salesperson, agent, business owner who has now been doing this for 15 years and they're beginning to see their business decline because they're not keeping up with the times, they're not staying ahead of it. What would be some of the things that you would suggest in areas where to start with their business to get moving forward or reinvent themselves so that they can keep up and can continue to grow their business?
It just kind of comes down, I heard it as a dating or a bar hopping analogy that a good friend of mine, Ed Stulak, said. He's an author and an agent on the East Coast.
Okay.
Young guy, really wise beyond his years. He said, I think if I get this right, marketing is what will help you approach the girl in the bar and get her to laugh at your joke. Branding is what'll make sure that she gives you a number, right? So there's this power behind the brand. The marketing will only get you so far.
Yeah.
I think for everyone, we hear so much about branding now. It's like dominating the marketing space.
I think the big question is always, what is brand and how do I create? Who am
Totally.
I? How to create my brand?
Yeah, I think we got to define it.
Yeah.
So look, it's so discussed. And it tends to kind of get overwhelming. And people are like, I don't want it. What's a personal brand versus a regular brand? Let me just tell you this, because this is how I define it for everyone. I like to keep things simple. Mm-hmm. Your brand is your reputation, by definition. That's it. Your brand is your reputation. And your reputation is the sum of everything that you put out into the world. Everything you put out into the universe. All of that put together is your reputation. That's your brand. You're attached to it. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
You got to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
Right? And the people that do, the sooner they do, the more that they can find a way to help it open up doors for them in business and in life, and then eventually monetize that. Because your brand at the end of the day, or your personal brand, it shows up to meetings before you do.
Yeah.
And it's what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
So once you recognize that and understand it, like a classic example is how I met you. You and I met in the flesh by way of my CEO, who's your good friend.
Yep.
We met at an event that he hosted, that he
Yep.
brought me down for. But I had already known about you for years because I was following you on Instagram, And not only that, I knew not only that you sold real estate, but I knew how disciplined of a guy you were, because you always you took ownership of your brand, and you would put it out there on social media about your workout regimen and how you never skip it.
Yeah.
And you don't skip certain workouts, and you film your entire workout.
Yeah.
To hold yourself accountable. Like, you see, I'm doing this at 5 a.m.
Yep.
I just finished my run and now I'm lifting. You run your 3 miles, then you lift.
Yeah.
I knew this about you before even having met you.
Yeah.
I knew this is a guy that I identify with. This is a guy I respect already. I know that this guy's not around.
And I think one thing great that you brought up this morning during the event, and that just kind of clicked with me, is that you shared that if you have information to provide to people and you're not doing it, you're selfish.
You're selfish.
Right?
You're holding it back, yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's really important, because a lot of us sometimes get either vain about this stuff, or we get insecure and thinking, well, okay, this whole branding thing you're saying, Arjun, you just defined it with Darin and whatever, but I don't have anything to say. Everybody has something to say, okay? Whether people want to hear from you or not is another thing. Everyone's got something to say. The reality is most all human beings have good hearts and good intentions. Most all that are out there. Which means something that they have to say could influence or impact somebody.
Absolutely.
And if we talk about real estate and investing and money and huge amounts of debt that people are going to take out, something that you have to share, if you hold on to it and you're not putting it out there for people to hear about, and because you're like, I don't know if anyone wants to hear, or you're insecure, or you say, it's already been said. If you hold that back, you're being selfish, because it could impact one person, and I know you, Darin. You will feel good if it helped one human being
absolutely.
today.
Yeah, I got to share a story the other day. Like, this completely threw me off. We were at a bank event, and the photographer there, she I've known her for quite a long time.
Right.
And she comes up to me and she says, "Hey, Darin, I want to let you know." I said, "Oh, got it. How are you doing health-wise? I heard she'd had some health issues." And she did. She had to go through some surgeries, and she had some health issues and stuff. And I said, "Oh, how are you doing now?" And she's like, "Great." She goes, and dude, this caught me completely off guard. She goes, "By the way, I just wanted to thank you." She goes, "I started watching your morning workout videos like 2 years ago." And she goes, "And when I found out that I had this health scare," she goes, "that's what motivated me to get up every morning."
Amazing.
And she goes, "And I would watch your workouts."
Amazing.
And she goes, I really believe it helped me recover." Now, dude, never in a million years was I ever expecting that comment from my morning workout videos. But dude, it was
powerful.
Oh, it was like, that was rewarding for me. And the next morning it encouraged me, oh man, I better get up and do this, because you don't know what people are watching for.
You never know who it'll impact.
I can share a ton of times of people who have done business with me now, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Darin, I know you do real estate. I see that. But the reason I want to work with you is because I love your level of discipline, and that's the type of person I want working for me." So I think that's where it comes down to, like, you have to be the mayor of your product, right? You got to be I don't care if it's a brick and mortar, or you're a real estate agent, or mortgage advisor. And I love, by the way, that you use the word advisor now.
Yeah.
I think we should all be going more
Yes.
that direction, because there's more value to that than just being a mortgage officer or a real estate agent.
100%. 100%.
Being an advisor, and that comes down to education, knowing your product. And I think the best way to hold yourself accountable to learning product is getting on video, right? And sharing that information. So
It makes you better at your craft.
Absolutely.
The more you do this stuff, it holds you accountable, because you're not going to talk about something you have no clue about.
Yeah.
You'll do your homework, you'll do your research. And talking about our business and getting sharper at our craft is a responsibility we all have.
Absolutely.
As service providers.
Yeah.
So some people think of doing stuff and putting out content and taking ownership of your brand as this extra thing. No, this is the thing.
Yeah.
You should be doing it.
Yeah.
You should be constantly sharpening your blade and your tools.
Well, and I think it's the one area over in the future that this is something I just brought up to somebody the other day. I said, I think that as much as technology has taken over, and as much as it is dominating, I do think there will be a point where that recedes a little bit. And the reason is because I think people are, by nature, they want human touch. They want human interaction, right? They want to talk to somebody. And that goes back to the branding.
Yeah.
Well, that's so important, because when they see you, and more than just, if you're a real estate agent, like you shared, more than just posting your homes and showing what you sell, but getting people, like letting people inside to know who you are.
Yep.
Because that's where people are at now. Like, they want to connect with you. They want to work with someone that they like.
And they know and they trust, yeah.
I really see that there's going to be a point in the future. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think as AI comes out And I think that as more and more people get these email scams and text scams and they've been taken and they don't know where, like the big one right now is the Apple one that everybody's getting that says that somebody just spent $149 on your Apple account, call this number to, approve it. It's a total scam. People are falling for it though because it's coming from Apple, or it says it's coming from Apple, right? And so they're falling for it. So I think there's going to come a point where people begin to lose trust in technology. And I know there's probably people sitting out there right now saying, dude, you're crazy like that. But I think there's a point where people will begin to lose trust with technology and say, man, I don't want to submit my paperwork anymore online because I'm not even sure if that's the right email. I don't know if I sent it to the right place. And then also now with AI, this made me think about the other day. I was watching this video, and in the end, it says this was all put together by AI. And I realized, wow, that whole video was fake.
It's a deep fake.
And I immediately lost interest in watching the videos.
Yeah.
Because I think right now people watch video, Instagram, all that stuff because it's like reality TV. And we know how well reality TV is done. It's still continued to do well.
Yeah.
I think people will continue to always watch that. But I think as social media begins to lose its reality and it becomes fake, I think it's going to lose its human interaction because people still want to see realness. They still want to see
100%.
interaction.
Yeah.
So, that's where, back to what you talked about this morning with branding and getting yourself out there. I think that doing that now, even though everybody may now feel like, oh, well, man, if I jump into it now, I'm like way behind the time. Everybody's doing video. Dude, I think it's just the beginning.
It's only the beginning.
Of it, because I think there's going to come a point where I think you'll look like you were way ahead of it,
Totally.
right?
There's always different chapters, right? It doesn't matter when you get in the game, as long as you stay consistent and you don't quit.
And you focus on being the best.
Yeah.
Right? As long as there's always somebody new that comes along.
Totally.
Right? As great as Apple is, as great as all these companies are, there's going to be somebody that comes along at some point and beats them, right? And then dominates that space and is a new person. I mean, flashback 15 years ago, nobody would have ever thought about buying anything else on Amazon besides a book.
Yeah.
And now we buy everything on Amazon, right?
Even Apple. Apple went through iterations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when we were kids, there was the Apple computers, the Apple IIc,
Yep.
the Apple II, but there were other computers.
The
like
Macintosh.
Yeah. Dell was a big competitor that eventually came on.
Yep.
And, and IBM used to make their own computer. Like, Apple figured it out, and these things change. They ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Again, it's a matter of when, not if.
So going back to branding, if somebody was sitting there today and they're like, Arjun, I don't really know what my brand is. How do I discover what my brand is?
Yeah.
What would be a few pointers for them that you could share with them on how to begin to figure out who they are?
So you can do this test, and it's an accountability thing.
Okay.
And it'll let you know where you stand with the market. So we'll just stick with real estate for now. Real estate and mortgage. It's all under the same umbrella as an industry. Talk to the last 5 either clients you helped, the last 5 referral partners you worked with.
Oh, I love this.
Or the last 5 people you interacted with. Maybe you consulted them, but they haven't done a transaction with you. Okay, if you're newer, maybe that's you because you haven't closed the deal, but you've been having conversations. Talk to the last 5 and tell them this. Say, hey, I am taking stock in my business, which means everyone is going to want to help you because everyone loves someone who's trying to improve, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm taking stock in my business right now and doing some accountability with my actual personal and business brand. Would you describe in one word what it was like to work with me or what it's been like working with me thus far if they haven't closed with you? Okay? Or ask your referral partners, what is it like working with me if it's a client you closed?
Hopefully they don't say difficult. Yeah.
Well, this is going to tell you where you stand.
Exactly, yeah.
Have them do it in one word. The reason why is because one word is very powerful. It forces the person answering the question to get to the point, and it also removes the aversion. If you're like, fill out this survey, they go, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Tell me in one word, you'll text it to me right now.
Yeah.
So just literally text 5 people and say, what's it like working with me?
And sending out the survey is very passive as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
So and this is really intentional and direct. And you'll get right to the core of it. That's going to tell you where you stand. That's going to tell you what your brand is right now and what you either need to keep doing because you're on the right path or what you better get a hold of. When I do this quarterly with referral partners and past clients, every quarter I do it because I want to fine tune, just like you. I'm maniacal about my business and where I stand and how to get better. Where did we land last quarter? What's our brand like? Has it moved? Or are we still on track? When I did this the first time 6 years ago, it was not pleasant. And I joke, but this helped me figure out where I was.
Yeah.
I was front facing in my business and I had a support team behind me. So I used to joke with people that I had this beautiful Mexican restaurant in the front where I was.
Yeah.
White tablecloths, whatever. The kitchen sounded like Taco Bell. It was chaos. The back end was like a fast food restaurant, like a fast food kitchen.
Yeah.
It was breaking. 6 languages were being spoken. Things were. It was a mess.
It was a mess. Yeah.
That's where I figured out where I stood because I asked 5 referral partners, and they gave me answers like late, discombobulated, disjointed. A couple of them said efficient, like good, or gets it done. That's more than one word, but they tried to say.
I mean, good is almost as bad as hearing bad.
Yeah, good. Like I wanted to hear phenomenal.
Yeah.
Can't imagine never working with you.
Yeah.
Indispensable.
Yeah.
Like those were the words I was seeking.
Yeah.
And I found out, I'm like, I didn't realize this. I've been looking so forward. I haven't been paying attention to what's going on back here. I was great at getting people in the door. Getting the phone to ring, starting the process with people, doing applications, sitting down with a referral partner and forging a relationship, never been a challenge for me. Mm-hmm. Keeping the client was very difficult during that time, and I could never figure out why. It's because I never looked. So when I did this exercise and I looked, I found out where I stood with the market, and I recognized, one, embarrassingly, why my business wasn't where it needed to be. Now I knew the answer, clear as day, and what I needed to fix right the fuck now. So I got control of it. I started moving people. We started building operating procedures, changing the process, creating a better consumer experience. And then we realized all the efforts I'm making here to get people in the restaurant, they'd stay. They'd sit and eat. They'd have dessert. To go back to the restaurant analogy, right? They didn't just have an appetizer and like, we're out of here. I'm like, why aren't you staying for dinner?
Yeah.
They were staying. They were even having nightcaps.
Yeah.
To really find, to nail this thing down. And so everyone needs to figure out where they stand with who they serve. Ask the question, do it regularly. Whether you do it monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever you want to do, just constantly fine tune. Ask people that you associate with, what is it like to work with me? What is it like to associate with me? What is it like to transact with me in one word? That'll be powerful and it'll tell you where you stand.
And I think that goes back to accountability, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't want to hear what we're doing wrong.
Oh, no.
But
It's uncomfortable.
That's the first place I want to start. I want to ask somebody, hey, what can I do better next time?
Totally.
Right? Because I want to always improve. And I want to fix the things. If they're broken, and like you said, a lot of clients, man, the greatest thing my dad has always taught me, and I remember from being a kid, he's like, Darin, always ask people for help. No matter what you're asking for, ask them for help because people love to help people. And he says, and also people want to feel a part of something. And when they see, people want to be a part of your success. They want to see you succeed. They want to help you.
Yeah.
And so if you ask them genuine questions and then you do what they're suggesting to you, he's like, that will go a long ways with people and you'll
Totally.
create fans.
Right.
And so I think that's such a great suggestion, Arjun, is just reaching out to the people that you've worked with, because they're going to tell you who your brand is, right? They're going to tell you why they worked with you and why they wouldn't work with you in the future. And so you can focus on those reasons of why they work with you and why your clients are working with you. May just be because you're likable. And people like to work with people who are likable, right? Like
Absolutely.
They want to be around somebody they enjoy being around.
It's work for you.
Yeah, then okay with that.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because that's another thing my dad used to always tell me when I was young. And I share that also because I think in today's, we have such this generation now of like, I don't care what people think. I don't care what people think of me. I don't care if people like me. And I'm like, dude, that is so damaging. Like, yes, you don't need to worry about if somebody likes you, if you've done nothing wrong to them and they just hate you for no reason. And the everybody talking about their haters nowadays. Why are people so focused on their haters?
Right.
I care less. I won't even know who my haters are. I don't care.
No.
I focus on the people who like me and want to work with me. But that was always something my dad taught me. He's like, my dad grew up in an orphanage and didn't come from a lot. And he always said, Darin, you know what? If people like you, they will always do what they can do to help you.
100%.
And it's crazy, man. Over the years, as I've been hired for jobs, as I've been hired for taking listings, and people will say, you know what? You may not have this or you may not have that, but I like you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a chance. And I think that's such a critical thing to remember nowadays is that it is important to be liked, right?
Is.
I mean, you don't have to please everyone, but even sometimes when you're not the people pleaser, people will still like you and respect you,
right,
just for being honest with them and being upfront. So I think it's such great information that you shared with, going back, asking your clients, why did you work with me? What are the things that I can improve? And that would definitely help in creating their brand. And so once they've created their brand, where would you suggest they take it from there?
Once you figure out where you stand, then you need to then ask yourself the question, what am I really good at? Why do people call me? How am I different from those I compete against? And get really specific. You can't use generalities like, I answer my phone at all hours. Or I don't quit on my clients.
Yeah.
Don't give me surface level talking points or like sound bites, or taglines. My service is second to none. I'm a fierce negotiator.
Yeah.
No, I think then, at that point, once you've really articulated the specific superpower you have that you bring to this marketplace, or what makes you different and why people call you, now you're going to take that as your sounding board or your mouthpiece, and you're going to storytell through that. Storytelling is one of the most underrated but important aspects of marketing and messaging that exists, because stories are, when they're told the right way, are easy to fall in place with. You can see yourself when you're listening to a good story, being that character or that hero of that story. So it's an art. And there's a lot of good people that do this well. Some of the best brands in the world do it really well.
And I think it humanizes you, right? Because sometimes people have a perception of you,
Yeah.
and they may not feel like connected with you because they may see you at a different level, or that you're different than them. And then when you story tell, they connect with you because they're like, oh, that's me. I went through that tough time as well.
Totally.
I totally pictured you were different than that because of what I see.
Right.
When you're only showing $5 million homes, I just think you're this certain person.
Totally.
But
they don't recognize there's another part to you, or the one that struggled. Or better yet, guys, it doesn't even have to be you. Storytell about the clients and the people you've done, the past stories, your past transactions. And if you don't have past transaction, leverage your team, leverage your broker, leverage other people you work with. Hey, this guy in my office helped this single mom. Storytell about that single mom, that divorcee who needed to move into a building so that their kid could get into school that someone in your office just helped.
Yeah.
And when you do that, there's immense power in it. People get emotional about these things. They tie themselves to it, and then they want to see themselves as part of it. And that story is going to connect with other moms. So you may not have the results to storytell from, or your own personal frames of reference to storytell about, but you can leverage other people. If you're part of a good team or a good brokerage. Like if I work here as a brand new, if I started and I applied with you as an agent tomorrow, I have not done one deal. There is more than enough resources of people. I'll ride your freaking coattails. I will say my boss, Darin,
Yeah.
the broker I work for, the boss I work for, helped this person with this thing, and I'm going to storytell that. Or I helped this family do this. Helped this family build wealth over the last few years by pyramiding their way and doing 1031s out of investment properties, and now they've got a net worth of this. Like, storytell. It's immensely powerful, but it's how you can continue to support a brand and do business along the way. And as you do it, your reputation grows. And like I said, your brand is your reputation. Things will grow from there. But that's the steps. Ask the questions, figure out where you stand, figure out what you're really good at, why people choose to call you, why you over anyone else, what's your superpower, and get really specific about it. And this should take you some time. It's not an answer that may come to you in seconds. You might have to dig deeper here. Okay, do a little soul searching, and that's fine. Look in the mirror and do it. And then start storytelling. And when you do that and connect all these dots, you're going to have endless content. You're going to always have something to market and talk about. And it's going to start connecting with people. And ultimately, that's part of the whole human experience, right?
And to go back to what you talked about, sharing someone else's stories if you don't have it, like if you're joining a team or whatever.
Totally.
That's such great advice, because I share that with all the agents all the time. I'm like, dude, when I started, I had no understanding of the industry. I started with a top team so that I can leverage them. And I think that's important also when you're starting out, because there may be a lot of agents sitting out there right now and be like, well, I haven't done a transaction and I haven't done a deal, so I don't know who I am yet. I don't have those people. I don't have the 5 people yet that I can go to. But that's where it's important is associating yourself with someone who is already successful in that area.
Right. I'm part of a team.
Yeah, and I'm happy when the agents leverage off of what I've created, right? Because that builds our business more, and that's part of joining a team and working around someone who's more successful.
Well, I think more importantly, and you don't maybe give yourself enough credit for this, Darin, but you don't have to because it's not your place. But I, as an outsider, I'm a lender that works with you and your team. I'm not even an agent. But I see how much you're always open, in fact, pushing it, of lending your successes and your wins to say they're your wins too, guys.
Absolutely.
Use it.
Yeah.
Use it. Not a lot of leaders, heads of offices, brokers do that. They might talk a fine game about, that and that my success is their success and vice versa, but they don't actually do it. Like, you actually walk the walk, and you literally lay it out there on a silver platter for people. I see you giving away the ability for people to co-list with you or share open houses. I want you to build your brand during luxury. Those come to you because you paid your dues.
Yep.
But you also know that you got to help send the elevator back down for other people to bring them up, right? Because somebody did it for you. You earned your stripes, but we all get a little bit of help along the way. So you help people out, and that's important.
Well, and I think that's a big lesson too, because I would say probably one of the biggest mistakes I see agents make, or any entrepreneur or business person starting out, and I made these mistakes, and this is how I learned the hard way, is that there was a time when I thought that I could only do it on my own, that I had to prove myself, even when I worked for somebody who was really great and I could leverage off of them. I didn't utilize that right away, because I always kept telling myself, I need to prove myself. I need to show who I am. I need to, I'm gonna do it myself so I can prove to them.
Yep.
And I'll never forget Florence Shapiro, who some know and some don't know her. But Florence was she was the queen of luxury real estate. She dominated this market.
Wow.
And I always have tons of respect for her, especially because she came up in a time when it was a male-dominant industry. And she kicked everybody's ass, right? I mean, she was the person. You talk to anybody who's been in this town longer than 20 years in the luxury market, every single person has a story about Florence Shapiro.
Amazing.
But the greatest thing I learned from her one day is because for the first 5 years, I struggled utilizing and leveraging from the team and leveraging them. I would get them on phone calls with me and that type of stuff for like negotiating, because that wasn't about me anymore. That was about my client and doing what was best for them. But she said to me one day, she says, I'm telling her, well, Florence, I gotta prove myself to you, and blah, 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 blah. And she stops me and she goes, you don't need to prove yourself. You've already proven yourself. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
You're here to learn from us,
Yep.
and we're giving you that opportunity. And that was something that immediately set in for me, where I'm like, you know what, she's right. I don't have to try to do it all on my own.
No, you don't.
And I think that so many of us get in that mindset where like, I've got to do this on my own, that I'm gonna do it all, and nobody else is gonna help me because it's all about me. And I think it's such a great thing when you talk about, going back to the piece that you were sharing about leverage. I think that's where you got to learn it's okay to leverage people.
Totally.
Like, anybody who's successful, they want to help you.
I do it all. I still do it.
Yeah.
I'm 20, something years into my career. You still do it. Like,
Absolutely.
you'll leverage something.
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
should. It's
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's there for you to utilize.
Yeah.
And it's your bad if you don't utilize it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's your loss.
It's like I look back. Some people are always afraid to talk to these people who are billionaires and millionaires. And I can tell you, man, I tell people all the time, one of the greatest things about this business, and probably the greatest value, far above the money, far above the cool homes that I've gotten to sell, is that I've had the opportunity to sit with some of my clients and have lunch and really just absorb what they tell me.
Yeah.
And one, just not long ago, I mean, dude, this guy's, sold his company for over $1 billion, and him and I went and had lunch, and we're talking one day, and so I start asking him some questions, and dude, it was like an hour of like the master class of him sharing with me. Number one, he's a client, so he's looking at this as he's a client as well, speaking to me.
Right.
But he had an incredibly successful marketing company as well.
Wow.
And he was so excited to share this information with me. And then just one of the tidbits that he gave me, I utilized. And I've actually created a program out of that. And I shared it with him 3 weeks ago. And dude, he was so excited.
Amazing.
He was so excited that I took his advice and that I actually listened. And this is a guy that could probably charge people $30,000, $40,000 for a consultation.
Yeah.
And he was just happy to give that advice. So I think it's really critical is, to leverage those people and don't be afraid to ask people who are successful, because those are the ones that want to help people more than anyone, right?
Because somebody did it for them.
Yeah.
They'll never laugh at you.
Yeah.
Successful person will never laugh at you for trying. They'll always, if anything, commend you and reward you for making the effort. Always, right?
Absolutely.
The haters and the low lives that'll make fun of you or reject you for something, but a successful person is always open.
And they want to help you.
They do.
Because they've all been there, right? The majority of them have been entrepreneurs. They've come from nothing.
They know
they
the
don't all
struggles.
come from wealthy
Totally.
families. And so they see themselves in you.
Totally.
And they want to bring you up.
They're always willing to send the elevator down.
Absolutely.
To pick you, bring you up. So that's great. Utilize it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So look, man, first of all, I want to thank you for joining me today. I've been looking forward to this podcast for
Me
a
too.
while.
Me
and
too.
and this was really exciting for me. I appreciate you coming down, Arjun, and being such a great support for our team. If there's any one thing that you want to leave off with today, do you want to share?
I think that's that same quote that we talked about earlier that I, told the agents today. If I don't, someone else will. Like, this is now, it is a dog-eat-world economy. Mm-hmm. dog eat dog, excuse me, dog eat dog world and dog eat dog economy. Like if you don't take control of your own future and your own destiny and what you know, supporting your family, supporting your business, I mean it. Like, you know, some people are like, it sounds a little extreme. Like, you got to have a chip on your shoulder now. You got to get after it. There's so much disruption. Things are moving so fast. Consumer decisions and behaviors are changing. The world is changing. The world's burning.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of chaos going on right now. Everyone's got to take control of their own future and destiny and not sit back and wait, you know? And if you don't, someone else will.
Absolutely.
You'll miss out on the opportunity. If you're dating someone that you've been stringing along for a long time, you don't ask them to marry you, somebody else will.
Yep.
Right? We've all been there. And that's right. You got forced to make a decision. Like, I better do this. If I don't, someone else will. And sometimes they do, and you lose.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't take that risk in business, you know, if you don't take that leap, like, you have to. So that's the last thing I would leave everyone with is just, if you don't, someone else will. It's written everywhere for me. It's on my phone. It's at my office. It's right above my camera because I've got a camera at my desk when I hop on my Zooms. It's right there on a Post-it note. If I don't, someone else will. Put it in the extra rep. Run the extra mile. You know, like the Ed Milet thing. The power of one more.
Yep.
Do it. You'll never lose for doing it. You can only come out on the other side ahead. So do it.
Awesome, man. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great day.